Welcome to Backstage with Richard Ridge. We're here at Rick Miramontez's Atelier at Civilian, and I'm sitting with one of this season's greatest breakout stars, Alex Joseph Grayson from Parade. Okay, you are co-starring now in one of the biggest hits in town, Parade. How excited are you?
I'm very excited. I mean, it's a lot of fun to go to the Jacobs Theater every day and create and be a storyteller with so many amazing artists, and I'm having a blast.
Okay, take me back to the beginning. Like when this was first announced, Parade at City Center for Encores, like, were you like, oh, I'm gonna go in for this? Did you know the show?
I knew the show because I actually saw a close friend of mine in a production in upstate New York, and the music is beautiful, and it's a tough story because it's a true story. It's a court case that really hasn't been resolved. I don't think anyone has gotten justice that was involved in this case, this murder. But the music is so beautiful. It's Jason Robert Brown and Alfred Ury, and it just opens up your heart. And I think it really puts the audience in this position of true vulnerability. So that's why we always see these tears at the end of the show. I mean, everybody's in tears at the end. But I think it's worth people's time. It's an important story, and people should hurry and get there before August 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a ticket to Parade. I mean, it's one of the biggest hits in town, which is really exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah. So take me back. So when you found out you were cast in this.
Yes.
Like, do you remember your call when you're like, yes, you're going to be Jim?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. It was a tricky time because when the show was announced, I didn't even think of it as something I could do because I was doing Into the Woods on Broadway, and we didn't have it was a limited run, but then we got extended, and we didn't know how long we were going to be there. And being an understudy or a swing, you really have a lot of responsibility to the show because if somebody else goes out, they need you. So it was a tricky navigation of seeing if I was going to be able to get away for that week. It was right in the middle of our Into the Woods run. So there was a moment. I had gone through my audition process. I heard from the director that I was like the first choice, which is unheard of. That's not a normal thing to hear as an actor, but I had worked with Michael on a previous production.
This is Michael Arden,
Michael
director.
Arden, we did Once on This Island on tour, which was a great experience. But there was a short amount of time where I was like, oh no, am I gonna lose this opportunity because I'm already working? Like, I mean, it's a great problem to have, but this show is so special and so important. But it worked out. And it was because of some very generous people that I was working with and people that really believed in me and wanted to invest in me being a storyteller in this process. And when I found out I was doing it, I was just over the moon.
So at City Center, Jason Robert Brown conducted the show.
He did.
What was that like for you?
It was really, really cool. I met him for the first time actually in the audition room, my first in-person audition. And, you know, that sounds kind of wild, but now I'm just so used to being in these musical theater auditions for Broadway. And you walk in there and you're like, okay, I know my song, I know the lines, I'm going to make these choices. And you walk in the room and it's like, hey, I'm Jason Alexander. And I was like, okay, I didn't prepare for that. Okay, nice to meet you. Back to being an actor. But that was sort of the Jason Robert Brown meeting. But he was super cool and super chill. Not a lot of pretense. He was just like, let's do the thing. I want to hear you sing the song. And now at this point, I've been in New York for almost 8 years. I recognize a lot of the faces in the room. So I had a lot of other familiar faces. And in addition to that, Jason Robert Brown. So we met there. He apparently really liked the work that I did because I got the job. And then to have him conduct at City Center, it was awesome because we were telling the story with one of the creators, and you know, he kind of downplayed his ability to conduct the score that he wrote, but he did a really great job. And his wife Georgia was there for part of the process, and even now she comes in and Jason comes in to visit. Georgia will play the piano from time to time. So it's a family affair.
Yeah,
it's great.
So you sang Jim's Big Number
Yes.
for Jason Robert Brown.
Yes. Yes. I sang both of the songs that I sang in the audition.
So it had to be a little daunting, right? Were the voices in your head or no? You're like, no, I'm just going to do it.
You know, I think because I'm a person that it learns by ear, I spend a lot of time with the studio recording, but I love to sing, and it's something that I've been doing my whole life. So I actually find a bit of ease when I'm able to enter an audition process and sing a song, because that's just like sharing part of myself. So it just really felt like an honor to be able to do it.
What's it like living in his score and singing those songs that you do each night in Parade?
Well, I find myself in this production where actors who are not involved in the scene proper are still on stage observing. I find myself having to say, Alex, don't hum along with this. I know the songs are pretty, but you're an observer. You're here on stage. You're just be a listener. Be an active listener. It's beautiful. It's beautiful music, and I cheer for my castmates when they come off stage, because they're just beautiful performances and beautiful songs. It's a privilege.
Yeah. Talk about working with your director, Michael Arden.
Michael Arden. Okay. Michael Arden, I hope that everybody gets a chance to work with Michael Arden, because I think that there's not really anybody better at creating moving paintings, living paintings on stage. And what I will say now, having worked with him twice, is that you can't really see what the audience is seeing as somebody who's on stage. He creates an image for the viewer, much like a book is written for the reader. It's the characters, the players inside don't have the same awareness. And I wish I could watch the show, because it has a completely different effect. And he leaves a lot of room for the actor to fill in that painting and to work on the internal stuff, which I really like. It's not about doing this specific thing, and he trusts the artists that he works with, and that extends to backstage, technical design, lighting. He has a group of people that he loves to work with over and over again, that are really talented, that he trusts, and it shows up in all of his projects. Yeah.
You take us on such a wonderful journey with what you do in this show. And I wonder, when you see how you're affecting an audience, what that means to you.
I keep saying privilege, but I feel like it's just a privilege to share. I think a gift that's been given to me to be a storyteller, to be a performer. It's something that I've always been doing, trying to find an audience and express myself in some way. And this is the largest one and the most consistent audience that I've had. And it's a gift that I'm passing along. I will say what I'm doing doesn't really come from me. I'm very much a conduit for this text, for the behavior and way of living that I've picked up from my varied experience in life. I'm just filtering it through. So I'm just thankful for the opportunity to share that.
This show touches so many people in so many ways, and it's such a relevant story for today. Just talk about meeting some of the fans afterwards and what you've heard about what this show means to them.
I mean, tears.
Yeah.
Literal tears at the end of every show. And it's a moment, there's a wow factor to that, because my process I come in with a lot of joy. I come in really feeding off of this sense of community that we have as actors, and singing this beautiful music and enjoying it, and enjoying playing off of other actors that are doing so many amazing things and making so many amazing choices. But in being true storytellers, it's a difficult story, and there are difficult truths. And then being confronted with those emotions, it's just I'm often in disbelief, even at this point in the run, that I can have such a profound effect on somebody else. It's moving. It is moving.
See, you don't have the typical history of someone starting in musical theater. I mean, you were a military brat, right?
Yes,
Growing
I
up?
was, yes.
For all those years, right?
Yes, yeah. I was born in Watertown, New York, because my parents were up there. My mother was involved in the Army Reserves, so she would go to Fort Drum, which is nearby, for her weekend training. And I think she was working as a dental hygienist at the time, or dental hygienist assistant. I'm not sure. I'll check in on that with her later. Yeah. And my dad was actually, he had been discharged from the Army, but he was working as a prison guard at Attica, so he would commute. And they separated when I was very young, but we were up there until about 1996. My mom got mobilized by the Army and sent to Germany. And shortly after that, I went to Germany for a little bit with her, and then we came back to Georgia. And I ended up around the Athens area, University of Georgia, that area, until my freshman year of high school. And then kind of moved back up to upstate New York, and then left the country for a bit. I started college in the Philippines, actually, for aeronautical engineering, believe it or not. So just all over the place, and in that time, not really knowing like what I wanted to do for a career, very much just sort of like on this ride that I didn't really have a choice in. But what I was doing was observing people, trying to figure out how to navigate new social circles, understand hierarchies, where the power lies, how to sort of protect myself emotionally, not get bullied, and all those things. And I ended up in a place of like realizing, okay, if I'm a bit of a clown, if I'm a bit of a performer, it almost overwhelms people with stimulus in a way that they're never going to have any energy to sort of come at me with anything negative. So it was sort of a survival mechanism. I feel like I'm giving away too much of myself here, but
not at all.
But in that, it's really the work of the actor.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some exhibitionism to that. And it wasn't until 2009, when I was in upstate New York, Western New York, Batavia, to be exact, that while I was playing in the church band at the Catholic church that I was attending, one of the kids that was doing music with me suggested that I audition for the community theater. They did a production of Jesus Christ Superstar that year, and I just showed up, and I can't remember what song I sang for the audition, but they picked me up right away. I think they needed more guys, as they usually do. And that was my first show. I loved it. I did 3 more shows with that community theater, Batavia Players, to be exact. We did The Wiz. I did a play. I can't remember the name of the play. And around the same time, I was working as a nursing assistant, and I had just gone to trade school at the time just to do something. I was in between, and then I enrolled in the community college in the area, took an acting class, and that changed my life. I was like, no, this is what I am. I'm an actor. I need to commit myself and devote my life to telling stories in this way, doing something that feels natural to me, that I've been doing for my whole life, and it's been working out. And I've run into so many amazing people that have guided me, so many amazing artists that have been inspirational, and I'm just lucky to have the right people support me.
You have this God-given voice. When did you know you could sing like that?
I think it started as making noise. And I was an only child for like most of my childhood. I've got some siblings, but my mother's only child, and my dad has 5 kids. So when I was living with my mom, I was like, it was me. Yeah. So I was like playing with my toys and giving them voices, and we're doing epic battles, and then repeating what I heard on the radio. And we listened to so many different things. We were listening to R&B and rock and roll. So I thank my parents for like very diverse musical influences. And I was just repeating the sounds that I heard, and I was the kid that had to be told to be quiet. But I was never told you can't do anything. So I think that's what it is. And then I ran into a really great voice teacher when I was in school, Dr. Alexander Hurd, who taught at SUNY Fredonia. And he equipped me with some great technique to protect my voice, to put me in position to do 8 shows a week. And I've just kind of kept going, and I don't really limit myself to one style. And people seem to like it.
Yeah. There's always that one teacher or somebody that you meet along the way.
Yeah.
Like the doctor, your voice teacher, who says, you can do this, and this is how you can do this.
Yes. Yes.
All right, so your first show, you got to New York. What was your first show here?
My first show in New York.
Well, you did the tour. You got the tour of Once on This Island, right?
Yeah, so my first professional job was actually with the Walt Disney Company. I worked on Disney Cruise Line. I was hired as the Lion King singer, and they do a bunch of shows. You do a show every night on the cruise ship. You do it twice, and they're usually like 30 to 45 minutes. And that was like boot camp for musical theater, because I didn't really have dance experience, but you had to dance in the shows, and it was great, because they had a very high standard of professionalism, and I got to travel, and it also gave me enough money to move here. And shortly after that, I got my first sublet, and I started going to auditions all the time. But the first show I did in New York was a fringe show with very talented Luis Salgado. It was called Zuccotti Park, about the Wall Street sort of, it was like a sit-in thing. So we did that, and then my first Broadway show was A Bronx Tale, the musical. And I was lucky to work with Chaz Palminteri. He came in and played the lead role at the time. So that was awesome. I was a swing in that show. Did the tour of Once on This Island.
Now, you met your wife-to-be on the tour of Once on This Island?
We met in rehearsal.
Okay.
Yes.
It wasn't love at first sight, was it?
Well, she would say that. But I always thought that she was an amazing person, and I always felt like, oh wow, this is a really cool woman. I thought she was super talented and funny, but I think that the way that our energy goes together, she interpreted that in a different way than I did. But I was always a huge fan of hers.
Yeah.
As a person.
Yeah. Okay, so during COVID, you're all locked away somewhere. Was it Nashville?
So we started in Paducah, Kentucky, which is her hometown, actually, where the Carson Center is.
Yeah.
So we had actually gone to Paducah to tech Once on This Island. And we ended up there, and we got all the way to Vegas on the tour in March. We shut down, and we were dating at that point, and she said, well, hey, I'm going back to Paducah because my parents are there. I'm not going to stay with my parents. I'm going to stay in an Airbnb. Do you want to come? And I was like, I mean, I don't have an apartment in New York right now. Got rid of that for the tour. So it was like, yeah. And we were there for like 5 months.
Yeah.
And then we decided, hey, let's get out of this town. There's not really anything going on here right now. Let's go to Paducah. And we moved to Nashville. And that's where we were for the bulk of the pandemic, and we made a home there, and I built a recording studio in our laundry room, and we just made it work until things started to come back, and we came back to New York. We were originally going to get married in Nashville, but
All right, who proposed to whom?
she proposed to me, believe it or not.
Over a crock pot or something?
Over a crock pot, yes. It was just one of those pandemic days, and we're making some food, and I think I was just checking on the status of the food, and she walked into the kitchen. I don't know where she was at that time, emotionally or mentally, but she felt strongly enough to ask me to marry her at that moment, and I felt strongly enough about her to say yes. I was unprepared, but I said yes, and
Over the crock pot.
yeah, and it was worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you just got married. What a year this has been for you.
It's been a great year.
Yeah. So the wedding just
Stressful.
happened, right? Well, of course it is, because you have to, open on Broadway,
Sure.
sing 8 shows a week,
Yes.
plan and produce a wedding.
Yes.
You got married in Central Park?
We got married in Central Park in the Conservatory Garden, and it was beautiful. We didn't know what the weather would be, but it just kind of turned out. Everybody showed up. It was wonderful.
You're like, let's just go for it.
Yeah.
Let's plan an outdoor wedding.
Yeah, and she was beautiful, and our friends and family, they were beautiful and so supportive. and it was quick. It was in and out,
Yeah.
30 minutes. And then we went down to Soho for the reception.
Yeah.
Had karaoke at the reception. It's great. We love karaoke.
Everybody sang?
Not everybody sang. We didn't have enough time for everybody to sing, but the people who needed to sing sang a song.
Okay. Do you have a favorite karaoke song that you do?
I actually didn't do it at that event, but one of my favorites is Lips of an Angel by Hinder.
Okay.
It's from the early 2000s,
Yeah.
and a deeper cut. And I also love Kiss from a Rose by Seal.
Nice. Do you two ever duet a karaoke night? You and your wife?
Yes, and we sang a duet at the wedding reception.
What'd you sing?
We sang Speechless by Dan and Shay.
Nice.
Yes, little country.
So everybody got a show too,
Yes.
which I think is great. So your wife now is in Shucked.
She's in Shucked on Broadway. Yes,
Yeah.
she's a swing in that show.
All right, so that must be wild too. I mean, I love the job of a swing because you have like 5 or 6 tracks that you have to keep in your head, right?
Yeah, sometimes more.
Okay, so in Into the Woods, how many tracks did you have to keep in your head?
I covered 4.
So who did you cover?
I covered Jack,
Okay.
Rapunzel's Prince, Milky White, and Cinderella's father. So
It's a nice blend.
It is a nice blend, and apparently there was no age limit on any of those.
Did you go on for all of them? Who'd you go on for?
The only role I didn't go on for was Milky White.
Okay.
Yes, which I'm okay with.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
But you all hung out. There was like an understudy standby room downstairs at
Yes.
the theater, right?
So, okay. So, we didn't have dressing rooms, and that was just that was the situation. And for that reason, they put us in the orchestra pit, and the orchestra was on stage.
That's right.
And we were like, okay, this is not ideal. So we kind of just fixed it up.
Yeah.
We put some lights up, and we spread all the equity cots around. We lined them up. It felt like a college dorm. And we would just hang out there. It was really fun. We would play games. We could watch the show through the conductor monitor because that was still plugged up in the orchestra pit. And it was great. We had a great time, and we could always hear the show because you're right under the wood of the stage. So whenever Patina would come out, there were multiple witches, but there was something about Patina Miller's witch where she would really bang that staff really hard.
Yeah.
And we knew that moment was coming, so we'd kind of be like, okay, here comes Patina. Do. But it was so great. And a master class in musical theater performance every night. I met Cheyenne Jackson in the rehearsal room singing Agony with him.
Yeah.
That was how I met him. It was like, hi, I'm Alex. I'm Cheyenne Jackson. Okay, let's do Agony. Okay, great.
That's a great way to meet somebody.
Yes.
Let's just sing.
Yeah.
Sondheim.
Yes.
But I understand. I knew your room downstairs. That was the coolest room. Everybody wanted to come into the understudy standby room.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody wanted to hang out in your room.
Yeah, it was cozy. It was
Yeah.
great vibes. It was awesome.
Who was the first person you went on for in the show? What was the first one?
The first role I went on for was Jack.
Okay.
And they, that was sort of my biggest role that I covered. So I had been prioritizing that, which was great. So I was off book, but it was like a matter of learning the blocking and where you fit. That's always the trickiest part,
Sure.
I think, as an understudy. Just knowing where you are, and the big sort of dance numbers. There wasn't really a big dance number, but there's traffic and you don't want to run into anyone. So I went on for that the very first week. We had a lot of COVID cases, but I went on and it was fun. And I got like 10 shows in a row. It was great.
How cool is it for both of you? Your wife's doing Shucked, you're doing Parade. I mean, this is like you just got married. I mean, everything, it's just got to be like this ideal life you have now. I mean, it's something people dream of.
Yeah,
Like, will I ever be on Broadway?
It's wild to think of, and it's very busy. But when you're inside of it, you're like, okay, so I'm going to work today. Okay, it's going to be a long day. I'm not going to have time to come home at all. But sometimes we get to commute together. We get off at the same train stop. She's a couple blocks over. We can meet up between shows. There are really cool things that happen when you're on Broadway. Reba McEntire came to see Shucked, and she's like an idol of my wife, like a huge inspiration. My wife was a competition country singer in high school. I don't know if you know that. And she's from Kentucky, so like country music is her thing. So that was a big deal for her. And, you know, going to the red carpet things and the opening nights, it's really cool. And it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my final questions is, I mean, you are sharing the stage with some incredible cast members. Ben Platt, Michaela Diamond. What is it like sharing the stage with them in this beautiful show?
It's amazing. You know, they're so wonderful in the roles that they play, and it's great to see the process and to see how things shift and grow, and how everybody in the company sort of economizes the movement and time and the space that they have, because you know, it's like it becomes muscle memory, but finding how people sustain it is one of the most impressive things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, finally, you're giving one of the greatest breakout performances this season with what you do in Parade. What has made being a part of Parade so special for you?
Gosh, I think just having the responsibility of telling an important story that I think is necessary for Americans right now, to just take a truthful look at where we are, and take a step away from sort of the ideals that we have about being Americans, and challenging people. I think it's a huge responsibility, and it's tricky. It's not easy all the time, but I'm grateful for that opportunity, for it mattering, that for what I'm saying having meaning and worth. I'm just thankful for that.
Yeah. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Broadway.
Yeah, thanks.